Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Rabbi Sai, we're holding by everybody's favorite sugya. No trauma, be relaxed. Not for not. Okay, so what happened again? The piece of meat that was hot was in a bowl. So it imparted flavor, a meat flavor into the bowl. They call that in English fleshig. The bowl became fleshig. Then you take a piece of fish and you put it into the bowl. The fish is also boiling hot. So because it's hot, you could pull the flavor out of the bowl. But because there was a bowl in between the fish and the meat, that's called the flavor, the son of the flavor. It went through too many stages to give it a strong flavor. If the meat touched the fish and they were both hot, then the fish would be real fleshig fish, and then you would not be permitted to eat that fish with milk. But because the fish got its flavor from a bowl, which got its flavor beforehand from a hot piece of meat, so that's called not barnat. We have machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Shmuel says not barnat is not a problem. The flavor is too weak, and we actually paskin like this. This is how we paskin. And Rav says it's awesome. I just did today. I just added it because we're going to be talking about this fish. He's eating this fish, but the fish is impure by the meat that touched the bowl, that touched the fish, and then you want to eat the milk. It's a little bit confusing, this little thing, but it has all the elements here. The meat in the bowl, but it's not. It's out of the bowl already. The meat touched the bowl, which touched the fish, and now you want to drink milk together with the fish. So we're just going to use it later, maybe for a second. Itmar. I mean, we could go back to that. We could just say the words Dogim sha'alu bakara. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about this fish that was in a bowl. That the bowl is a meat bowl. Rav says you're not allowed to eat the meat of the fish together with a dairy product called kutach. Rav Amar kutach. You're not allowed to eat the fish together with kutach because kutach, as you saw, has milk in it. It also has salt. It has some bread. Shmuel holds not barnat is mutar. The Gemara explains. Rav Amar asur noisin tamu. It received flavor from the meat. So in the fish, there's a little meat. How could you eat meat together with dairy? Milchiks and fleishiks, awesome. Ushmul Amar mutar noisin tam bar noisin tamu. Not barnat. That's why they call it not barnat. It's cool. All the mefarshim, they call it, instead of writing noisin tam bar noisin tam, they make it so confusing. Not barnat. Almost like checking out. You know, sometimes the Rosh Hashanah is harder than the actual word. Noisin tam bar noisin tamu. Since the bowl received the flavor from the meat, and there's no meat anymore in the bowl, and the fish received the flavor from the bowl, so it's one time removed from the meat, it's called not barnat, and it's mutter to dip your fish in milk. Says the Gemara, in fact, Rav never said it in Mefurish. We know this from a story. At the time. The Rav, equal to Rav Shimi Bar Chia Bar Berei. Rav goes to his grandson's house. Chashbein of Rav had an eye ache. Of the Leishiyofa Bitzah. So they put together a cream, an eye cream, and they put it in Rav's eye. Basar Hachi, what does a good family do? After you make a nice, disgusting cream, you feed the Zayda with the same bowl. Basar Hachi Ramule Bishula Begavoh. They say, maybe the Shiva, the Rav, the Galador, maybe wants to eat a little bit gefilte fish. So they put it inside the bowl. He's like, what is this? It tastes like eye cream. So what do you see from here? The whole idea of not barnat is that the flavor is so weak. If it had a strong flavor, if it had a meaty flavor, there wouldn't be a question here. The point is that it went into the bowl, it went into the fish, you can barely detect the flavor, and that's the question. Rav's saying, I taste it. I taste the eye cream. In other words, he's saying that not barnat is a problem. But he never said so before. Says you can't bring any rye from there. Shani Hasan the Nafish Marara today. I don't know what the ingredients of this eye paste is. Apparently it's extremely strong, and that's why he tasted it. But a regular piece of steak is not that strong, so you don't have an issue of not barnat. Says Tosfos, wait a minute. Of course we can't bring a raya from the story, but we know what Rav holds. Rav holds not barnat is also. Nothing to do with the story. Maybe you won't be able to prove it from the story, but that's Shitas Rav, which we don't pass like. Says the Gemara, fascinating story which needs a lot of explanation. Reb Elazar have a claim kamei demar Shmuel. Reb Elazar was there in front of Shmuel. They brought him exactly this dish that we're talking about, this fish that touched the bowl, that once touched a piece of meat. And Shmuel started eating it, dipping the fish into the sour cream kutach thing that's on the floor in the airport. And they gave a little bit to Reb Elazar and he refused to eat it. In other words, he says, I don't eat, not barnat. I don't eat a piece of fish that touched the bowl, that touched the piece of meat earlier on. Both, of course, hot. Omalei, Shmuel got upset. L'rabach, your Rebbe, who's your Rebbe? Rav. L'rabach yahavele v'achal. I fed your Rebbe called Rav a piece of fish and he dipped it into kutach. You think you're better than your Rebbe? That's never a good thing to act more chashav than your own Rebbe. What kind of business is this? That you're makbid or not barnat when your own Rebbe didn't? Also, kamei the Rav. So Reb Elazar runs back to his Rebbe. Omar lei hodabei mar mishmaitei. I don't understand, Rebbe. I heard this from your own mouth. You said in Shiur that not barnat is osur, that this fish would be osur to eat with milk. Why in the world did Shmuel tell me that he fed it to you and you ate it? Omar lei chasle lezari chas v'sholem to the children, the Abba bar Abba, which is Shmuel's father. The literally midi veloi spiritually. No way in the world would he give me something that I don't hold of. In other words, loi hoyu dvar moilam. The story never happened. He never fed me fish, and I never dipped it in kutach. Made up story. I hold not barnat is also. Ask all the Rishonim, what is going on over here? How is it possible that Shmuel lied? Comes out a lie. He tells Reb Elazar, I fed your Rebbe, and his Rebbe says, I don't know what you're talking about. I never ate this. So there's a number of tirutzim. I don't know that anyone will be extremely satisfying to the oil, but one teretz is that he meant a different Rav. Another teretz is the Ritva says that he was exaggerating. In other words, he's saying, even if I fed it to your Rebbe, you would eat it. What's your problem? Why are you being... Not that I physically fed it. The Rajdam, who lived 500 years ago, in the time of the Beis Yosef, he says that, no, he actually fed it to him. Because he thought Shmuel was under the impression that Rav knew what's going on here, that he understood that this is, what did the Gemara call it? The fish that's in a pot. What is it called? How do you know it's Daf Kuf Yud Aleph? In Zichru. Dagim Shal Bakara. He knew it's Dagim Shal Bakara, and Rav ate it. So then he barvarns the question, but how is it possible that a Tana, Rav is a Tana Upali? A Tana would be Nichshal in not barnat. So he says, no, it's not Nichshal, because Allah is like Shmuel, that you're allowed to eat not barnat. So he by mistake ate not barnat, and Shmuel was under the impression that he knew about it. He says, I fed it to your Rebbe, and your Rebbe ate it. Okay. Each different tirutzim, pick and choose. Says Rav Huna and Rav Chia Barashi Aviyasvel. Another story. Both Rav Huna and Rav Chia were sitting. Chad b'haigis the Ma'abara, the Surah, v'chad b'haigis the Ma'abara. They're both sitting on opposite sides of the river by the bridge. Lemar Aisu Dogim Shalu Bakara, V'cha B'kutach. One, they gave this fish that we're talking about. I guess it was a common thing to have hot fish that was in a bowl. They didn't have a lot of bowls. Look, it's not like they had disposable. They make a paste, and then they use the same bowl to give it to their zaidi. Why? They don't have another bowl. How many bowls do they have? 2 bowls. Each bowl is $100, whatever. So they gave fish that touched a bowl that touched meat, and he ate it with kutach. Now here's the question: This is mamish halacha l'maisa. We can learn a lot of stuff from this. If you eat sushi in the middle of your Shabbos meal after you wash the maitzi, do you have to make a bracha on it? Sushi, no. What if they bring you a bowl of ice cream right after Hamoitzi? Do you have to make a shahakal on it? Yes. Okay. Good. Good. What are we passing? Mati? Do you have to make a bracha? On ice cream. What about on a fruit? Yes. Okay. So, what about, do you have to make a bracha achroina? Do you have to make a boirei nefashos after you eat the ice cream that you made a shahakal in the middle of the meal? No. No, you sure? Yes. Okay. So, let me show you Rashi here for a second. You don't have to look inside. You can look over here on the screen. It says Rashi Tainim, the middle line. Too many lines here by mistake. Tainim Anov, I'm just jumping ahead. If they bring you dates and grapes in the middle of the meal, well, also the lift on, it's not something that you shmear on your bread, so it's not part of the meal. But kind of something that you typically would eat after the meal, like dessert, like grapes. That's normal for people to bring it after Suda. It happens to be, I was once in a restaurant and the guy said, "You're not normal." I sat down, I remember exactly where it was. What's the name of that Fleishik restaurant next to the King David Hotel? Rodriguez, not Rodriguez. What? Red Heifer, very good. Sitting Red Heifer. And I said, "Could I order dessert now?" And he goes, "Yeah, but you're not normal." It's never happened. I've been there for 6 years. Nobody's ever ordered dessert before. I said, "Yeah, I'm a shtickle off. I like dessert first, sometimes." So it says, "This is something that comes after the Suda." To an bracha, says Rashi, "Bein lefneihem ubein lachreim." You have to make your own mein shalosh, your own burn of fashas. Rashi holds in the middle of the Suda. If you eat this, we don't pass like Rashi. Only on the first part. So says the Gemara. Now that we know all this, now that we have this big Hakdama, so one of them was on the other side of the bridge. They brought him the dates and the grapes in the middle of the Suda, and he ate, and he didn't make a bracha. So says the Gemara, Yasma, you're mamish an orphan. You don't have any seichel, says Rashi. Eloi das. What's wrong with you? You're going to eat fish that touch the meat plate? Oh, Rabbi Chavi, do you have like a Messiah? I love that. You have a Messiah? What's your Messiah? And the other one says to Israel, Yasma, you're the orphan. Oh, Rabbi Chavi, he eats bananas in the middle of a meal, he doesn't make a bracha. So the other one answers, really. What do you mean? I hold like the halacha that not bernat is okay. Not enough flavor to make it meat. I hold like Reb Eli bread makes all food in the meal. You don't have to make a bracha, even fruit. V'yayin poiter kol mini mashkin, and wine makes all other liquids mutter to drink without a bracha. That's the halacha. That wine patters mashkin, but bread is not the halacha. I don't know, the dalet, I have to figure out why it says dalet. The bread does not patter all the desserts and everything. Oh, Marchizki, I don't know if people are so familiar with the wine thing. That we make boirei priagafa, and now you don't have to make a bracha shalom aleichem. You don't have to make a bracha on apple juice and all this other stuff. The boirei priagafen gives you a p'tur on other drinks, just like hamoitzi gives you a p'tur on other foods. Bottom line, not for not, this fish that touched the bowl, that touched the meat. The fish that touched the bowl, that touched the meat, that's the halacha. You're allowed to eat it with milchiks. New halacha. This is a big chiddush. Until now we're talking about hot meat that touched the bowl, and then the hot fish touched the bowl. Over here we're talking about how do you say it's not in English? A radish that's sharp, but it's cold. So you have two things going for it. It's sharp, and also the knife, the power, the force of the knife also has the fleishiks or whatever it is go into it. You have a knife that cut meat earlier, and now you're cutting a cold radish. So the sharpness of a knife pushing down in the knife, plus the sharpness of the radish. Also, you're not allowed to eat it together with the milk. This is only a radish, the agav churpe bala, because it's very sharp, so that's why it's able to absorb more than a usual food, and that's why the meat will go into the radish. But if you eat, here's kishus. First of all, radish. What's radish? This is radish. Beautiful pictures. Just the letters, everything. Mamish, unbelievable. So if you eat kishus, like a squash. Squash is on the sweet side. You know that squash soup that they make? It's on the sweet. Butternut squash. It's sweet. So what do? Garlic, sake, va'achal. All you need to do is cut away from where you cut, and you're good. Kilcha de lifta, the leaves of a turnip. We're not talking about the turnip itself, because I guess that's sharp. But the leaves, kilcha de lifta shari. Okay, I don't know what it is. Then that you're allowed to eat without doing anything. You might have to wash it off, but you don't have to cut anything off of it. The silka, but the leaves of beets, asiri, because they are sharp. And once again, so you see the beets on the right side, the beet itself is sweet, but the leaves of the beet are sharp and they're similar to that of a radish. So that's problematic. The leaves of the middle one, they look similar, they're green, but they're sweeter, so that's not a problem. V'pazach behu the lifta, if he started doing the turnip first, which is the sweet one, and in other words, he alternates between the turnip and the beet. So, well, we're talking about kutach over here. Can you eat kutach afterwards? The knife has meat in it. We have a meaty knife, and you're cutting these leaves, and then you want to eat the leaves with kutach. It's the same thing, not kind of situation. Instead of a bowl, you have the knife, and you had the knife which had meat on it. So if you alternate between the sweet and the sharp, the sweet takes away the sharpness. Shaper dami, that's okay. Sometimes, in the kitchen, you have like an open a jar, exactly, an open jar of salt. And now you put your kutach next to it. And when you grab some of it, what happens? It drips, it falls, pieces fall. Some of your kutach will fall into the salt, into the jar. And then what? Tomorrow you're going to make a steak. You take a whole spoonful of of salt, put it on your steak. Now in that salt you have a nice geschmack piece of kutach that just fell. So you got to be careful in the kitchen where you put your stuff. You're not going to put it next to it, because that's obviously a problem. What if you put the kutach next to the chalamai, an open jar of vinegar? Sorry, that's okay. What's the difference? What if a piece of kutach falls into your vinegar? Why is that okay? So he says the famous line that Rav Nachman says a few times in Shas. If you give me a lot of salt, if you pay me, I'll give you pshat. What do you think? You get free pshat over there. You want to really enjoy the pshat? You're going to have to pay. My time. What's the pshat? What's the difference between the kutach, a piece of milk falling into salt, or a piece of kutach that falls into vinegar? Very simple. When the kutach falls into salt actually preserves things. It's going to stay as is. You're going to have a nice chunk of kutach that goes into your meat, which is a problem. But when a piece of kutach falls into vinegar, it's going to dissolve. It's not a problem. Says the Gemara, there's a little chicken, a little bird, a little, what do they call it? Yeah, but not a chick. A little chick fell into the kutach. Gross. They're both cold. Yeah. Now, what's the problem? The problem is that maybe there's a lot of salt in, you saw Reb Yedidia salt. He took one of the ingredients is salt in the kutach, and the salt in the kutach is going to cook the meat to the point where the kutach is going to penetrate into the chicken, into the bird, into the pigeon. How? Through the salt. Because we saw yesterday that meluach harei ke riseach. That in other words, you don't need a hot item. The salt creates heat. Halachically. Who's so smart that can say that this is okay, it's not a problem? Why? Because when Shmuel said that salting something is like boiling it, it means it's so strong, it's so salty that you can't even eat it. This is the normal amount of salt. That type of salt that you put in a cake, that you put in kutach, that you put in whatever in your challah, is not the type of salt that we're talking about that boils up a food. And the whole thing is when this bird is raw. That's one shot. But if it was already roasted, then it penetrates, and you need to remove the outer layer. And if it has like cracks in it, then through the cracks, the kutach will penetrate and ruin the entire bird. And if you spice it, like we saw yesterday, it softens up the meat. It's awesome. This is grosser to gross. This is a very super interesting shaila. I'm sure many of you had this problem. You take a hamburger and you put it on a bun, and the nice red juice goes into your bun. Are you eating blood?
No.
Why? What? Mayakopen. Very good. In Hebrew it's called moil. Mayakopen equals moil. That's the sugi right now. I don't know if you're right. Let's see. Kigar. Shechatach aleh basar. It's matters like that. You take a piece of steak, you put it on your bun, on your, what is it called? What's the baguette? And you decide to cut it. And as you're cutting it, juices flow out of the steak into your baguette, and it's red in color, and it looks like blood. What do? Asala achla, Hillel. Ma'ikopahi, ma'ikopaher, asala achla, it's blood. Oh, machlekes. Says the Gemara, no, the problem is when the animal had like a black and blue, like you got a whack and they have blood clot somewhere, that's a problem. It's only when it went to the other side of the baguette. It's really thick. It's just, what is it called? He's looking it up. Less lumbo, it's not a problem. Says the Gemara. Shmuel shadi leile kalbei. He would take this bun that had red thing and give it to his own dog.
Kalbei.
Oh, kalbei. Not kelev, the kalbei. Had a dog. Ravuna yar leile shamei. And Ravuna, this is super interesting. So I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to give it to my shamish. Ask the Gemara. The Gemara jumps out of it. Wow. Marvshach, Ishari, if this thing's mutter, Likulam Ishari, it's mutter to the Rebbe. Yasir, Likulam Asir. Shani Ravuna, Danina Daite, Ravuna was the istinus, so he couldn't eat it. You're looking at him and saying, oh, he gives it only to Shamish. He doesn't, no, he just doesn't like that red stuff on the bun. He's human. And some humans don't like this and some do. Don't bring halachas from it and whatever. Says the Gemara, Rav Achalei, B'karlei Chamar Basar. He would call it the wine of meat. In other words, even though it's very red, like wine, it's no problem. It's called what, Hillel? Myoglobin. It's called moyal. It's called water. It's nothing to do with blood. Blood is gone. Do not put a vessel underneath the meat to catch. Again, I don't even want to go there, but we showed the video, right? Of this, these people used to drink that. Okay, we're not going to show it again. We won't show it again. They'll drink the fat. Do not try to catch the fat because there's some blood coming off the meat into the bowl, and you're gonna by mistake eat the flesh. So it says Gemara, how do you know? How do you know that it's done? Says Gemara, when it stops smoking, smoke is the signal. Maybe it's smoking because the bottom is burning out, but the top is not even done at all. You know how you make a steak, sometimes and there's a bunch of blood over there. There's no way to figure this out. You give it a little two like things of salt. And then you take off you pour it slowly and easily from the top so that the fat falls into another vessel. Like that, you catch the fat, the blood remains on the bottom. Says Rashi, you do yara shumna elyon benachas miklil kli v'shisar v'adam boy that the blood should mix. But reason by halachas is the dafkinok atreg loli. It's a certain amount of salt, a very small amount of salt. Kloimar mat melach. A melach harbe, he says, if you do too much salt, it's not good to put too much salt because then the blood is going to get mixed into the fat because it will liquefy, it'll make it thinner. It'll thin out the blood to the point where it'll mix into the meat and it'll become a problem. The Shmuel really say what? You're not allowed to try to catch the fat and everything. We have a halacha that if you take a piece of bread and you cut meat on it, you're not allowed to eat it. It's different when you cut a piece of meat. We have to understand what's going on in this. I can't say I understand it 100%, but there seems to be, in addition to all the blood that just comes out naturally, we're not worried about it. Deep inside, there's some blood, and that when you put the pressure of the knife, that pushes the blood out, and that's the problem with your bread. Rabbi Sai, have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shiur today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.